Mr Deputy Speaker, on the 1st of December 1988, we observed the first World AIDS Day. It was created as an international day to raise awareness of the AIDS pandemic caused by the spread of HIV and to mourn those that had died from the disease. In 2 days' time, we mark its 30th anniversary. And this event gives us pause to reflect how far we've come and to remember those who we've lost. But such events are also deeply personal to me. Because, Mr Deputy Speaker, next year I will be marking an anniversary of my own. 10 years since I became HIV positive. It has been a long journey from the fear of acceptance and today, hopefully, advocacy, knowing that my treatment keeps me healthy and protects any partner that I may have. When you are first diagnosed, you get that call from the clinic and they just say, you need to come in. They don't tell you the details. And you know immediately something is going to be wrong. So all the different worst-case scenarios flash through your mind. And of course, being someone who was a sexually active young man, HIV is one of those things that flashes through there. And so you kind of know, going in there, something is wrong, and it might well be serious. But at the same time, you are working out all the ways that this is just some joke, this is some technical error, this is some, kind of tiny thing that they're going to tell you that you'll be laughing about later on. You try and imagine the ways that you're going to get out of this. And then in that NHS room, with those cream carpets and the plastic seating that we all know, they tell you. And it hits you like a wall. And though you've prepared yourself for it, in your mind, nothing quite prepares you for when they say those words. And I remember looking up at that ceiling, those false ceilings that you get, and wishing that one of those tiles would just whip away and it would suck you up and you'd wake up and it would all be a dream. And it would all be over. But of course, the reality is, Mr Deputy Speaker, that is not what happens. Instead, you walk out of that room, and even with all the greatest support and advice that they offer you, you walk out feeling totally numb. And you have a million things running through your mind, but at the same time, a sense of absolute nothingness. And I've decided to make this announcement and speech today, Mr Speaker, Deputy Speaker, because earlier this year I was at an awards ceremony in Brighton. I'd nominated Gary Pergetter, who has been running a local club for people living with HIV for a number of years called Lunch Positive. He'd won the award and people were coming up and talking about how important the project was, how brave he had been, talking about his HIV status. And I felt like I'm watching someone who has done inspiring work, and I'm proud to have nominated him, but I haven't told anyone else in this room that I'm HIV positive too. And just like so many that attend Lunch Positive, I'm lucky because the medication means that I won't get sick and I can't transmit HIV. And I felt that if Gary and so many others could talk openly about it, then so should I. The second reason that I wanted to have this debate today is because we are genuinely on the cusp of eradicating new HIV transmissions in this country. Figures today show we are already, in parts of this country, halting the rates of HIV diagnosis. But we are at a fork in a road, and currently I worry that we might be starting to head in the wrong direction, with 700 million of cuts to public health between 2014 and 2017. We're not investing in the universal PrEP rollout, the pill that prevents HIV. And so I think it is important for me politically to speak out. And finally, I wanted to be able to stand here in this place and say to those that are living with HIV that their status does not define them, that we can be whoever we want to be. And to those who have not been tested, maybe because of out of fear, I say to you, it is better to live in knowledge than to die in fear. Mr Deputy Speaker, HIV in this country is no longer the death sentence it once was. A recent study led by the University of Bristol found that due to the advances in HIV treatment, people living with HIV can expect to live a near normal life. The improvements in survival for people with HIV is one of the greatest success stories of recent times. What was once considered a terminal disease is now seen as a manageable condition. Yet the information has not changed the narrative, which is still sadly framed in those scare campaigns of the tombs of the 1980s. Yet so much of LGBT culture also is marked by this spectre of HIV, something that has led to an incredible sense of fear about the disease. And in that hospital room, and in the days and weeks that followed, I had to come to terms with that fear myself. I'm a HIV-positive man, but because I've been taking the right medication for several years, I am what the NHS calls HIV-positive undetectable. That means not only can you not detect HIV in my system, so I don't get sick, it means that I can't transmit HIV to someone else. So as the virus lays undetectable and dormant in my body, my medication ensures that the virus doesn't reactivate, doesn't progress and can't be passed on. That's why, Mr Deputy Speaker, the NHS says undetectable equals untransmittable. UNAIDS highlights 3 large studies conducted between 2007 and 2016 of HIV transmissions among thousands of couples, with one partner being positive and the other negative. In those studies, there was not a single case of sexual transmission of HIV from a positive undetectable person to a HIV negative partner. Mr Deputy Speaker, it is safer to have sex with someone who is HIV positive undetectable than to have sex with someone that doesn't know their status. Yeah. Because undetectable equals untransmittable. Understanding that I was unable to transmit HIV sexually has been life-changing too. I went from thinking that I would never have a HIV-negative partner, or that if I had sex with someone, I could pass it on, to the knowledge that I can live a normal life and that any partner I have is totally protected. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, I can't transmit HIV to my sexual partner. I have a perfectly healthy life. So my announcement here today should go totally unnoticed.
On that point. I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and may I say he's being immensely courageous in what he's doing today. And I, for one, am sure that his courage, his bravery, will no doubt reduce the stigma and reduce the fear of so many living within our country and far further beyond.
Thank you. Yes, but I expect, you're right, that my name will help those people, and it might appear in tomorrow's newspapers as a result, of course, of being the first MP to declare themselves HIV positive in this chamber, and the second, only after Chris Smith, to openly live with HIV as an MP.
Will the honourable gentleman give way?
I will do.
Very briefly, I just want to say what a typical gesture of my honourable friend and how proud of you that we all are.
So, to gauge what the public reaction might be like, maybe foolishly, I went on social media to read some of the comments on recent HIV news stories. You don't have to scroll down to find comments like anyone with HIV and has sex should be tried for murder, or fags getting what they deserve, or disgusting lifestyle choice. Now, most of the people behind these comments will be homophobes, who are just weaponising HIV to attack LGBT people, and if it wasn't HIV, they would find something else, because they are haters, and they are not pleasant people. But HIV stigma is not just a symptom of homophobes. Even the most well-meaning people can perpetuate HIV stigma, and it takes many shapes. It can be believing that HIV and AIDS is always associated with a death sentence. It can be thinking that HIV is only transmitted through sex. It is thinking that HIV infections are the result of some personal or moral fault. And it can be believing inaccurate information about how HIV is transmitted, which in turn creates irrational behaviour and misconceptions about personal risk. Mr Deputy Speaker, before I was diagnosed, I myself perpetuated some of those stigmas. So it's not without judgment that I ask people to reflect. It is with a genuine ask that we begin to think, talk and act differently when it comes to HIV. Mr Deputy Speaker, this is even harder when there is a taboo about talking about sex, which means stigma is often compounded, creating a more risky environment because those people don't seek the treatment they need. The Sussex Beacon in my constituency is one of only 2 residential care facilities for people living with HIV in the country. It originally started as a hospice in the 1990s. 3 to 4 people died there each week. Fortunately, end-of-life care is a rare occurrence now at the Beacon, but today most of their support services are utilised by marginalised groups with HIV who face a big stigma. Older people diagnosed late, women, black and ethnic minorities. All of these groups are disproportionately affected by stigma and rely on the good work of the Sussex Beacon and charities like it, but their funding is being reduced. Yesterday, I was lucky enough to get a photo at the Martin Fisher Foundation and their Stiggy with the Stigmasaurus as part of their campaign to make HIV stigma history, and I hope other members who weren't able to will be able to join me in that pledge coming forward. Because stigma causes a treatable disease to become life-threatening, again due to the impact of an individual's mental health and their access to medication. No person diagnosed with HIV today should feel any less able to thrive and enjoy life than anyone else because of their status. But stigma is not just a UK problem, it is a global one. 15 years ago, 200,000 people around the world received treatment for HIV. Today, it is 22 million, but we still have 15 million more needing access to regular medicine. I will do, go on.
Can I first of all thank the honourable gentleman for bringing his personal story to the House today, and we mean that very much. And also, can I say, Mr Deputy Speaker, I wish him continued good health and that he continues to prosper as he quite clearly does. I mentioned him beforehand I wanted to do an intervention, and I just want to bring to his attention in my constituency of Strangford, at one of my churches, the Enum Church, they have a specific HIV programme in Swaziland where it has the highest levels of HIV in most of Africa. And every year children come over, Mr Deputy Speaker, of a choir group. Every one of them are HIV positive, but every one of those children are surviving today because of the medication that's available. And I just want to say that if the medication's there, Mr Deputy Speaker and honourable gentlemen, really, we can do lots of things and save lives and give opportunity. And there's a lot of goodwill across the world amongst many churches and amongst many individuals to help as well.
Quite right. And we are making progress on treatment. But when it comes to stigma, we still have so much further to do. Last week, I was in Kenya with the International Development Committee, and I met a HIV-positive mother of 8 children who was from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And although on medication, she had suffered such abuse that she was forced to flee the DRC and now lives in a refugee camp. Because of the prejudice and violence she faced, as a result of her status, she was forced to leave without her children, and she knows not of their future. Deputy Speaker, I do not have time to talk about the international context.
Thank my friend for giving way. I think he's making an absolutely brilliant and historic speech, and I'm very grateful that he mentioned my good friend Chris Smith, who very bravely told the world in 1984 that he was gay and proud of it, and we're proud of Chris for doing that. I'm also very pleased that he's brought up the international context of this, the international context where there is appalling levels of prejudice and abuse against HIV-positive people and against the LGBT community in many countries around the world. We just need to send a message out from this House of Commons. This country has changed its attitudes. We have done a great deal medically to help people. We need to ensure that the rest of the world understands that we can do the same in every other country in the world. We have to close our minds to prejudice and open our minds up to human rights and justice for people all across the globe.
Yeah. Thank you. I totally agree. And there are some countries in the world that I now, because of this announcement, may struggle to be able to travel to. So this is important that we continue to make international efforts. I don't have time to talk about all the international aspects here. I will, of course, commend the work of the HIV/AIDS Alliance and plan to come back to this House in future months to talk about their End AIDS 2030 festival, which is really important. Turning back to the UK, it is not just the case that HIV is treatable, it is now preventable with 1 tablet a day. You can prevent yourself from contracting HIV with what is pre-exposure prophylactics, also known as PrEP. PrEP is revolutionising the fight against HIV transmissions. It has an almost 100% success rate, a higher rate than condoms in the prevention of HIV, and it's just 1 pill. We expect this pill to soon be available as a generic drug, and according to the NHS's own analysis, it could save the health service £1 billion in preventing HIV transmissions for future generations. Astoundingly, however, the only way to access PrEP in England is through a limited trial. This is not a medical trial. Those have been done and approved. This is not about financing. We know the cost. This trial, as far as I can see, is about delaying the rollout of PrEP in England because someone meddling in the ministry thinks they know better than doctors when it comes to your health. It seems to me that this trial is more concerned about what you do between the sheets than the health of the nation. And despite just being 1 year into this 3-year trial, 3,000 additional places have already had to be added, and it looks like the 13,000 places will run out early next year. England now lags behind all the other nations in the UK as the only country with capped PrEP access on the NHS. And there are 2 years to go until this trial ends, yet people are unable to get immediate access to PrEP, with many clinics now having long waiting lists and some completely full. We know that there are cases of young men who have sought out this prevention pill and have been turned away because the clinics can't accommodate them, and they have subsequently become HIV positive. Those men now have to live with HIV and everything associated with it because of this, frankly, misguided morality of this decision. Make no mistakes, these are not isolated cases. The longer this government waits to roll out PrEP properly, the more people will be diagnosed. So can I ask the Minister, will he intervene to ensure PrEP is made routinely available on the NHS in England, just like his government have already done with Northern Ireland with direct rule, just like Scottish government has done, and just like a Labour government has done in Wales? Failing that, will he at least uncap the trial to ensure those trying to access the drug can? Will the Minister reverse public health cuts, including in sexual health, so they meet demand, including people affected by HIV? Otherwise, we actually seriously risk undoing the really good progress we have all made. Just today, the latest Public Health England statistics show that the UK has met its UN AIDS target of 90-90-90, ahead of 2020, which was the date. This amazing progress, with 92% of people living with HIV diagnosed, 98% of those on treatment, and 97% of those with undetectable viral load, meaning they can't pass it on. At the Terence Higgins Trust World AIDS Day reception earlier this week, I'm told the Minister hinted that the government was considering bolstering its ambition on HIV to committing to reaching 0 new HIV transmissions by 2030. So in light of today's statistics, now is the time to seize that opportunity of reaching 0 new HIV infections and be a true global leader. Can the Minister provide details of how the UK government actually plans to end HIV infections, and what timescale will the government commit to? At present, 1 young person every day is still diagnosed with HIV, and young people continue to suffer some of the worst sexual health outcomes. We cannot be complicit on this. Will the Minister agree to work with the Department of Education to ensure relationship and sex education guidance has a strong focus on not only HIV prevention, but anti-HIV stigma? And finally, will the Minister liaise with DFID colleagues to ensure funding is increased for research so that we are making the huge gains in scientific breakthroughs so we can eradicate this disease globally? Mr. Deputy Speaker, in 2 days' time, on World AIDS Day, I will stand with my community to mourn the losses of those who have died of AIDS. I will do that at the Brighton AIDS Memorial, the only such dedicated public memorial in the country. I will stand there in the knowledge that I will live a life so many couldn't. I am able to do that because of the people that have come before me, the people who have fought and lost their lives, and the people who stood up and had their lives changed. We owe it to these people to beat the disease, something we have the power to do. I hope future generations will look at HIV in the same way that we look at smallpox and polio, diseases that were once killers that can now be eradicated. Mr Deputy Speaker, LGBT people often talk about coming out as something that you constantly have to do to new neighbours, friends and work colleagues. You can say the same about your HIV status. I've spent many nervous moments deciding whether to tell new friends and acquaintances about my status. The lump forms in your throat and your heart flutters and you finally kind of blurt it out and then hopefully you move on. Well, Mr Deputy Speaker, I'd like to thank you for giving me this platform to do just that. I'd like to thank my friends and family, my colleagues for supporting me, and thank you to the Terence Higgins Trust for all the work they do and the support they've given me in preparing for this today. We have the ability to end new HIV transmissions as well as end stigma and discrimination, not only here, but globally. And I hope we can all make that our mission. Thank you.
Can I just say, we shouldn't clap in the House, but I understand why people have. Can I just say, from the Chair, I think it's a very brave, a very moving speech, and has given hope to a lot of people around the world.